The Fast and the Furious start with a thrilling nighttime highway robbery. A team of skilled thieves driving black Honda Civics expertly hijack a semi-truck filled with valuable electronic goods. The next scene shifts to Brian O'Connor. Following his trial run, he visits Toretto's market and cafe. While his food is being prepared, he spots Dominic Toretto in the back. Vince gets suspicious that Brian is still coming around the store and he approaches him. It leads to a fight. Dominic is forced to break it up. He warns Brian not to come around the store again. After sunset, a large group of street racers gather for an illegal street race. Dom and his crew also show up. Dominic organizes a race with $2,000 buy-in. Brian doesn't have cash, but he puts his car on the table and the rest let him participate. Near the end of the race, he takes over Dominic, but turns out he has his own nitro, and when he engages it, he takes back the lead and wins the race. Soon, LAPD is alerted and goes after the racers. Dominic tries to stash his RX-7. However, an LAPD recognizes him and he almost gets arrested, but Brian shows up, takes him into his car, and manages to escape the police. Soon after, a group of bikers appear and their leader, Johnny Tran, tells Brian and Dom to follow them. Tran is mad that Dominic had disregarded their truce to stay off each other's turf. Dom explains that Brian, his new mechanic, got lost. Tran's crew opens fire towards Brian's car and blows it up as an act of revenge. Brian and Dominic share a taxi back to Dominic's house where an after-party is going on. Brian is not well received by Dominic's team, with Vince asking Dom why he brought the Buster to the party, and Dominic replying that it was the Buster that kept him out of handcuffs. Dominic leaves upstairs with his girlfriend Letty, and tensions mount when Brian is left alone with Vince, Leon, and Jesse. However, Mia interrupts and pulls Brian away from the trio to join her for a drink in the kitchen. She points out to Brian that her brother Dominic likes him and that it is unusual. The following day, Brian is pulled over by an unmarked police car and gets arrested. The car arrives at a residence where Brian is removed from the handcuffs. It turns out he is an undercover police officer led by Sergeant Tanner and FBI agent Bilkins. He is running an investigation on the recent truck hijackings, and his mission is to infiltrate the Street Racer Society. Brian returns to Dominic's shop bringing a Toyota Supra. Dominic and his team laugh at the car, failing to recognize its potential until Dominic pops the hood and notices that most of the parts under the hood are in good shape. Brian, Dominic, and his team begin restoring the vehicle and preparing it for race wars. In the meantime, Brian and Mia form a closer bond, and Mia asks Brian out to upset Vince. Dom shows Brian his Dodge Challenger and tells the story how his father used to drive it, until he died in a racing accident caused by the other driver. Dom reveals he beat up that driver and got banned from race trucks. Brian and Mia go out on their date and it goes perfect, until Sergeant Tanner contacts Brian by phone to inform him that the truck hijackers had struck again. Bilkins had made a decision to strike on Johnny Tran and his crew, as they are the most obvious suspects. But soon, it turns out that all the electronic equipment they possess was purchased legally. That leaves the investigators with the conclusion it must be Dominic and his crew who are responsible for the hijacks. When Brian arrives at Race Wars, he finds Jesse about to race Tran for pink slips. Jesse engages Tran, but his lack of experience cost him a victory. Shocked after what happened, Jesse promptly departs from Race Wars. Angry Tran goes to Dominic and claims his car, showing aggression, until Tran informs him about the police raid, and then accuses him of being the snitch that caused it. Later, Brian spots Mia arguing with Dom. When he leaves, Brian reveals to her that he is a cop and that Dominic and the team could be in trouble. The crew performs another hijacking, but turns out the drivers are armed with guns and they fight back. Vince immediately gets in trouble and things begin to look bad until Brian arrives with Mia and saves Vince's life, risking his own. Since Vince is badly wounded, Brian blows his cover in Dominic's presence by calling for an ambulance to save his life. Dominic is enraged. He returns to the car with Mia and the four depart back to the city as the paramedics load Vince into a helicopter. Brian returns soon after to confront Dominic. They begin to argue. Tron and his crew perform a drive-by on Dom's house, and it turns out Jesse gets hit and dies. Brian and Dom try to go after Tron. During the heist, Brian gets in trouble, but Dom saves him as he is about to get shot by one of Tram's bikers. Brian pursues Tram until they reach an overpass where Brian swings his car around, striking him twice in the left side of the rib, causing him to crash and killing him. Dom waits for him at a red light. As Brian pulls up, Dominic tells Brian that he used to race at the spot during high school. Light turns green and they begin the duel. Dom crashes his car but survives. Instead of arresting Dom, Brian gives him the keys to his car, allowing Dom to escape the police. Following the end credits, Dominic is shown in Baja, Mexico, driving a 1970 Chevrolet Chevelle SS. Brian O'Connor is on the run after he let Dominic Toretto escape in the previous film. He lives on a boat and is a part of Tej Parker crew, competing in underground street races. Tej provides the cars, Brian drives them and wins the races. He wins another one with a girl named Suki coming second. Turns out she is also close with Tej. During the race, Brian spots a pretty girl watching him closely. Soon police arrive and starts chasing Brian and he gets cornered. One of the officers uses an ESD launcher and disables his car. He is arrested and brought to Special Agent Bilkins, who makes a deal with him saying that if he accepts to take part in a mission, his criminal record will be wiped clean. O'Connor will be infiltrating an Argentinian drug lord, Carter Verone. Though he is partnered up with another officer, he requests to choose his own partner, proving that Agent Dunn has no idea about cars. O'Connor and Bilkins then travel to Barstow, California, where O'Connor proposes the deal to his childhood friend and ex-convict Roman Pierce. Though he blames Brian for putting him in jail, he agrees to work with him, hoping his record will be cleaned in return. They get brand new racing cars and get introduced to undercover U.S. Customs agent Monica Fuentes. They take a trial against the other drivers to prove themselves worthy to work for Verona. It looks like Monica and Verone are close, and Roman spots that Brian is into her and he's concerned that might get them in trouble. Vernon shows up and explains he needs someone to simply drive a package for him and offers $100,000. Brian introduces Roman to Tej and Suki, and Roman begins to admire life in Miami. Markham threatens to charge them both until they reveal information about Verona and suspect Monica's cover is in jeopardy since her relationship with Verona. The two are allowed to continue the case, although O'Connor suspects that after the job is done, Verone is likely not to keep his word and will try get rid of them. They plan a workaround which requires 2 more new cars and ask Tej to arrange a race with 2 of the racers from the Verone audition race. They win 1969 Camaro and 1970 Challenger. O'Connor and Pierce arrive at the nightclub and meet Verone. He brings them into the VIP lounge and a police detective named Whitworth is also there. Vernon tortures him to make him keep the local police away from O'Connor and Pierce so they may transport the money. The next morning, Monica gets on Brian's boat and warns him that they will kill them after the job. Soon, Verona's men arrive, but Roman distracts them so they don't catch Monica with Brian. Boys report to Bilkins about what happened and what they find out. Bilkins wants to call off the operation, but Agent Markham tells them to go on not carrying much about their lives. Boys ride in their Mitsubishis and 2 of Verone's henchmen riding along. They put the money in a trunk and the police appears. They lead the police to a complex. There, O'Connor's and Pierce's street racer friends create a diversion, allowing O'Connor and Pierce to sneak away, continuing their mission. But police is still on their ass until they stop at the beach, and it turns out it's Tej and Suki driving their cars, while O'Connor and Pierce have switched to the Camaro and Challenger they won before. They split up. Pierce soon ejects Verone's thug that was riding with him, and meets Jimmy at the agreed location. Meanwhile, O'Connor is told by Verone's accompanying thug to not go to the airfield, which they thought was the destination, but to a boat dock instead. Verone then revealed he knew Monica was an undercover US Customs agent when she slipped up for informing US Customs agents about his plan to flee the country. Verone leaves while sending O'Connor away with his men to be executed. O'Connor is about to be killed, but Pierce arrives just in time to ram Verone's thug's van. Verone puts Monica in captivity. O'Connor and Pierce get in the Camaro and plan to save Monica from Verone by jumping with the Camaro off a nearby ramp and landing on the top of the yacht. O'Connor shoots at Verone with the gun taken from the thug earlier. Verone is arrested and half the duffel bags carrying his drug money are recovered from O'Connor's Camaro. Markham agrees on their deal to have their records cleaned. Both secretly confess to each other that they have taken some of the money from the bags before, and that's how the film ends. Meet Sean Boswell, a high school kid who looks like a 30-year-old man. One day he messes with the football team captain over a girl and they decide to race each other. Sean would probably win, but this douchebag starts to play dirty and both cars crash. Police blame Sean and his mom decides to send him to live with his father in Tokyo. Sean is not much excited to live with his dad, who is a military type. But next morning he puts his uniform and goes to Japan school. He spots a cute girl, faces some weird habits, weird food and weird haircuts, until he meets a Lil Bow Wow who tries to make friends with a fellow American by trying to sell him crap. But soon it turns out they share an interest in fast cars. Bow Wow takes Sean to a car party and soon the hot chick from school shows up. Sean flirts a little, but turns out this girl Neela is with this DK guy who is like Yakuza and shit. Sean decides to challenge him to race, and though he doesn't have a car, this guy Han lends him his ride. But it turns out DK stands for Drift King and Sean doesn't even know what drift is. So he drifts like shit and makes a fool of himself and turns Han's car into garbage. Next day, Han picks him up after school and takes him to a guy that owns him money. He tells Sean to collect it. Turns out he is a sumo wrestler, so he throws him out, but at the end, gets Han his money back. Han tells Sean he works for him now, and Sean asks him to learn him how to drift. Then go to meet DK, and Han tells him that Sean works for him. DK's sidekick challenges Sean for another race, making fun of his skills. DK and Han make a side bet over putting their cars on the line. Later, Han explains to Sean that DK's uncle is actually Yakuza, and he is just a show-off, but Han deals with him to keep his uncle away. It also turns out Han owns quite a nice garage and a car collection, and he gives Sean a Mitsubishi. Sean begins to train his drift, but he sucks. Meanwhile at school, Bow Wow gets a beating and Sean defends him, and that earns him some Neela's attention. And later that evening, Han gives him a life lesson his dad never did, plus a drift tutorial. Sean spends his days training and gains some skills learning from Han. Soon he beats DK's ginger boyfriend, and that makes Neela planning their kids' names. Soon Sean asks her on a date, and she agrees. She has her cute little life story that would probably help her earn a spot in a TV talent show. They have a really nice time, but the next day DK shows up with his gang and beats up Sean. When Neela finds out, she tells DK she breaks up with him. He gets mad and calls her mom a slut, so she goes to Sean and he takes care of her. Soon DK's uncle shows up at his place and tells him, "You know what? Those guys are stealing from you, and I'm not just talking about your girlfriend, you fool." So this time Han gets a beating. Then DK spots Neela and he pulls a gun. Sean distracts him and they escape. Heist over the streets of Tokyo begins and IT ends up with Han crushing his car and IT blows up. Sean takes Neela to his dad's home, but DK soon shows up there. Lucky his dad shows up and saves Sean's life, and also Neela decides to go with DK to calm him down. Sean's dad wants to send him back, but he convinces him that staying and fighting against Yakuza is actually a better idea. Sean takes a bag full of money and goes to Kamata-san, aka DK's uncle. He embarrasses DK in front of his uncle and asks him to let them race each other. Kamata is like, cool, you guys do that. So they meet at this huge-ass mountain and race from top to the bottom. At one point, DK crushes his car and falls down. Shawn finishes and wins the race and the girl. Yakuza uncle lets him go and the film ends with another parking party. Bow Wow tells Shawn that someone who knew Han wants to race with him. Shawn agrees and turns out it's Dominic Toretto. Race starts and that's how the film ends. Fast and Furious 4 starts in Dominican Republic. Dom and Letty are after a gas truck along with Han. Letty jumps on the truck and she breaks the links between the tanks while Han takes care of them. But the truck driver opens fire and Letty gets stuck. Dom saves her at the last second. In the evening, they all meet at a party. Han tells Dom cops are sniffing looking for him and he suggests they should leave this country. Dom tells that he is the one they are looking for and he will leave. He also decides it will be safer for Letty to stay. He leaves early in the morning while she sleeps. Meanwhile, in LA, Brian O'Connor is working as an FBI agent. He works on a Braga cartel case. Dom moved to Panama. He gets a phone call from Mia. She tells Dom Letty has been murdered. Brian shows up at the funeral, but rather as an agent than a friend. Dom is also back watching from a distance. FBI already knows he crossed the border. Dom and Mia visit the place where Letty's car was pushed off the road and then she got killed. Dom figures there are marks of nitromethane on the road and there is only one guy in LA selling it. Next day he goes to this guy Virgil and he gives him a name, David Park. Brian and the FBI are looking for the same guy. Dom gets him first and soon they have a little reunion. Looks like Dom is still mad for what happened in the first movie. Anyways, he leaves Park to Brian and he interrogates him. Park reveals that Braga's number 2, Ramon Campos, will hold a street race. Park gets Brian a spot in that race. Winner gets a slot in Braga's driver's team. Funny thing is that Park promised the same thing to Dom before Brian arrived. Gal Gadot is also there and it looks like she works for Braga. Brian would have won this time, but Dom plays dirty and wins. Brian is mad, but Gal Gadot is already picking names for her and Dom's babies. Her character name is Giselle. Brian arrests this Dwight guy who also works for Braga, and that way he also gets a spot in Braga's driving team as a replacement. Dom sneaks to the garage and he finds out it was probably this guy Phoenix who wrecked Letty's car. He delivers a shot glass with Braga's fingerprints and gets an assignment from Braga. They need to smuggle stuff through the border. They meet Phoenix on the other side and Dom confronts Phoenix about Letty. Shootout starts and Dom tries to deal with Phoenix, but soon cops arrive and Brian takes him out of there. Agent Penning orders O'Connor to bring in the shipment and Toretto, but Brian decides to hide the $60 million in drugs and help Dom. He got shot earlier, so Brian calls Mia to help him, and I guess they still have feelings for each other. Dom finds a cell phone at Brian's stuff and turns out it belonged to Letty. That means she worked with Brian and Dom loses his shit. But Brian explains that Letty came to him to clear Dom's name in exchange for bringing down Braga. Dom calls Giselle and offers a trade drugs for $6 million. But Braga needs to deliver them personally. Braga agrees and shows up. At the same moment, the agency confirms his fingerprints and Stasiak orders the SWAT team to strike. But turns out, this guy Campos is not Braga. Actually, this dude was Braga right from the beginning. Shootout starts and Dom saves Giselle's life, but Braga managed to escape. O'Connor gets in trouble for that, but he still tries to convince his boss to go after Braga, as they know his identity now. Mia shows up and they officially get back together with Brian. In Mexico, Brian and Dom meet with Giselle. She tells them how to find Braga. Soon they approach him at church. Dom decides to take him back to the United States. Boys use the smuggling tunnels they did earlier, but Phoenix is after Brian's car and he makes it crash. Braga is okay, so he pulls him out. Brian is injured and Phoenix is about to kill him, but Dom shows up and runs him over. Soon, police arrive and arrest Dom and Braga. Then we see Dom in court and judge sentenced him to 25 years to life. Fast 5 starts where the last film ended. Dom is transported to jail, and Brian, Mia, and 2 other of his friends, they make the bus crash, which is a risky tactic, at least if you care whether your friend will survive. But Dom makes it. O'Connor and Mia become fugitives hunted through the country. They get in touch with Vince. You remember Vince, right? He was into Mia in the first part, but now he has a wife and kids in favelas. He gives them shelter and offers a job. It's a good old-fashioned train robbery, and Dom is also there. And it turns out that they are stealing from DEA, and that was not part of the deal. But at the end, Dom and Brian get captured by Hernan Reyes. This guy threatens Dom, and at this point we all know how it ends. They meet back with Mia, and she tells them the government blames them for the train heist, so now they are even more wanted. But it also turns out that they got the car that Reyes wanted the most. Luke Hobbs from DEA arrives to lead the team that is ordered to capture Fast and Furious. Vince explains that he did not know this job is a setup. Now he wants the chip from the Ford GT that Reyes wants so badly. Dom tells him to get out, and Vince can't believe 4 movies later Dom still picks Brian over him. Elena Neves joins Hobbs as a translator. He picked her because he trusts her since she lost a husband in drug wars. Brian analyzes the chip found in Ford GT, and turns out it's a delivery schedule. Meanwhile, Hobbs arrives at the favela and finds their hideout. The trio escapes through the rooftops. Dom loses Hobbs, but Neves corners him. Soon some thugs show up and open fire. Dom saves her life, and Dom is like,
"Hey, how you doing?"
She is so busy picking their future kids' names that she just lets him escape. When the trio meets later, Mia reveals that she is pregnant. Dom is happy for them. Back at DEA, Neves is like, "Do we really have to arrest this Toretto guy? He is so cute." Hobbs is like, "Okay, first Reyes, then Toretto." Dom tells Brian that they will use the chip to steal Reyes' drug money, and then they will disappear. And they assemble the team. So time for the franchise reunion. Han, Roman, Tej, Rico, Tego, and Giselle are invited. And yeah, if you are confused about Han, who died in Tokyo Drift, this plot is actually earlier in Chronology, so he lives and eats chips. The plan is to hit all the spots on the map that is on that chip with $100 million at stakes. They start with raiding one of the safe houses just to show their faces and burn the money they found there. They want to send a message to Reyes. Hobbs finds out that Ford GT misses the chip, and Reyes gets informed that Toretto's crew attacked his safe house just to mess up with him. He orders to gather all the cash in one place and secure it at the police station. Dom sends Roman to drop a siping device to the police station. That way Tej discovers a safe. Han gets them a copy of that safe so Tej can practice opening it. Giselle gets Reyes' fingerprints by flirting with him, and Han is so impressed he already picks names for their babies. Later that night, Dom visits Neves, and I guess you can call it a date. They decide to steal police cars so they can pass the security cameras without getting caught on them. Dom, Han, Brian, and Roman have a quarter-mile race for fun. Brian wins, but Roman and Han tell Brian it's clear that Dom let him win. Mia gets tracked by Reyes' men. Vince shows up and helps her escape. Dom appreciates that and lets him into the crew. Right before they are about to leave for the job, Hobbs shows up. Dom fights him, and it's even as hell, but Dom, driven by anger, gains advantage, and though he could kill Hobbs, he stops himself. Hobbs arrests everyone, but now he has second thoughts. DA transport gets ambushed by Reyes' men. Hobbs gets injured and his men get killed. Dom and Brian save him from getting killed and escape with an armored truck. Turns out Vince got a bullet. He tells Dom that he named his son Dominic, and Toretto promises to take care of his family. Dom still wants to finish the job, but everyone else wants to quit, understanding it's suicide. But Hobbs decides to help Dom. So they don't even try to sneak, they just drive straight into the police station and shoot their way inside. They hook the safe to their cars and escape. That triggers an over 10-minute long chase sequence that ends on a highway, with Brian saving Dom's life. Hobbs shows up and kills Reyes, who survived the car crash. He tells Dom that he takes the money, but he will give them 24 hours advantage before he starts chasing them again. Boys leave, and when Hobbs opens the safe, it's empty because during the chase, they switched the safes as they had a spare one for practice. Yep, they get the money. So Han ends up with Giselle, Vince's family gets a fair share, Dom ends up with Neves, and they meet Brian and Mia at the beach house. Brian challenges Dom to race him, and that's how the film ends. Fast and Furious 6 starts with Dom and Brian racing, but it turns out they actually are heading to the hospital where Mia is giving birth. Then we see Hobbs in Moscow meeting with Agent Riley. A Russian military convoy was attacked there and satellite components were stolen. Interpol got one of the drivers involved and Hobbs asks him where his boss named Shaw is. Turns out Shaw is in London. Hobbs finds Dom on the Canary Islands. He tries to convince him to help him by showing him a picture of a girl that looks like Letty. Works like a charm. Hobbs asks Dom to assemble his team again. They go to London and meet Hobbs and Riley. He introduces them to Owen Shaw, who is a real badass like ex-military, and we are talking spec ops. Looks like his crew is building a tech bomb designed to block entire military communication for 24 hours. He just needs one last part. He also promises that if they get him Shu, he will get them pardons for what they did in earlier movies. Turns out Hobbs knows Shaw's hideout and wires that guy Interpol arrested in Moscow. Shaw is there, but at the same time, his team is approaching the Interpol headquarters. Brian takes the team there while Dom stays to deal with Shaw, hoping he will lead him to Letty. Shaw escapes with this armored bullet and blows the whole building. Finally, Dom manages to corner Shaw, but he gets shot and turns out it's Letty. Looks like Letty lost her memory, and even when Shaw shows her a picture of her and Dom together, it doesn't ring any bells. Toretto's crew finds a guy who is equipping Shaw with a kind of car he drove last night. But this dude is sneaky and he secretly gives Shaw a heads up, and soon Letty shows up and shootout starts. Crazy mechanic gets shot, and before he dies, he gives Giselle a phone leading to Shaw and whispers, "Braga." Turns out Braga and Shaw are working together. Brian decides to go to the US and pay Braga a visit in jail. But to do that, he needs to put himself in jail, and Stasiak is more than happy to help. Soon, Braga recognizes him and pays him a visit during the night shift. He admits he runs everything for Shaw. Shaw was actually first to know when Brian put Letty in Braga's cartel undercover. Braga and his men try to kill Brian, but he handles them, and Braga tells him that Shaw is a step ahead of them. Back in London, the rest of the crew signs in for some street racing party. Dom spots Letty and he actually challenges her for a race, and Rita Ora is doing the counting. Dom wins. Then he takes a chance to chit-chat with her a bit, and he tries to refresh her memory by bringing on his A-game. Looks like it works. Then Shaw shows up and tries to talk him into quitting the mission. Dom tells him to let Letty go with him, and Shaw says no way. He has a sniper pointing a gun at Toretto, but Dom has Hobbs covering his back, so Shaw takes a rain check. Letty is going through the files, thinking about what Dom told her. Shaw asks her what she would do if he told her to kill Toretto, and she says she doesn't care. Hobbs spots a trail. Tej uses it and tracks Shaw down in Spain. Brian gets back and they get into the military base that will be attacked by Shaw. Turns out he is not attacking the base, but the convoy on a highway. Fast and Furious prepare an ambush, but it turns out Shaw's has a tank. Shaw decides to kill some civilians, and Letty doesn't approve that. Soon Roman gets in trouble, but Brian saves him. Then Brian uses Roman's wrecked car to stop the tank, but Shaw sends Letty to IT off. She gets thrown in the air when the tank gets pulled up, and Dom saves her life. Also, they arrest Shaw. Back in the military base, everyone is happy and they think Shaw is done, until Shaw reveals that he sent his men after Mia and Elena. Now he has Mia. Lucky Elena took the baby and escaped. Shaw wants the chip in exchange for Mia's life. Base commander is like, I don't care, but Hobbs is like, oh, we care. Also, turns out that Riley was working for Shaw the whole time. Still, they decide to go after Shaw. Letty fights with Riley and Shaw chases after Mia. The rest joins in, and Brian takes a chance to take Mia and tries to escape. Hobbs joins Dom and they have a tag team match against Shaw and his puppy. Han, Roman, and Giselle try to stop the plane carrying the chip. At one point, Giselle sacrifices herself to save Han. Han realizes his anger and throws this guy into one of the engines. Others hook up their cars to the plane and bring it down, making it crash and explode. Dom jumps out at the last second and crashes his car, so everyone assumes he is dead. But he is okay. Toretto gives Hobbs the chip and everyone gets their record cleared so they can return home and have a barbecue. Han decides to go to Tokyo and Hobbs shows up with Elena. Letty is like, "I ain't mad you slept with my man when he thought I was dead." She even lets her have a proper goodbye moment with Dom. Film ends with a scene in Tokyo showing Han having a street race. It's the same one shown in Tokyo Drift, only when he crashes we see Jason Statham getting out of the other car and putting Han's car on fire. Then he calls Dom and threatens him. Furious 7 starts in London. We see Jason Statham talking to Shaw, who is in a coma. Turns out that's his brother, Jakob Shaw. Meanwhile, Dom takes Letty to Race Wars. Letty starts in a quarter-mile race and wins. Then she gets surrounded by old friends and she has a flashback. That shit makes her panic and she leaves and visits her own grave. Dom finds her and she is like, "Can you please stop trying to reboot my memory? I'm not Letty and I'm breaking up with you." Elena leaves Hobbs for some other job and Shaw pays him a visit. He copies the files from his computer and they fight. Elena shows up trying to help, but she only makes Hobbs busy saving her life and Shaw manages to walk out with names and personal data of every Fast and Furious member. Mia tells Dom she is expecting. There is a package sent from Tokyo in front of the house and it turns out Shaw sends a bomb, but luckily everyone is okay. Except for the house is not okay at all. Dom visits Hobbs in hospital, and since he is single now, he checks out if Elena's legs still shake when he approaches her. Hobbs introduces Toretto to his daughter. Then he tells him that Shaw has an evil brother. Dom decides to visit Tokyo. He meets Dean like it was shown in the last scene from Tokyo Drift. Dom promises to avenge Han. During his funeral, Dom spots a Maserati and begins to chase it. Turns out it's Jakob Shaw. They crash into each other. Both of them survive. Special unit shows up. Shaw runs away and Dom is approached by Mr. Nobody. He tells Dom that recently, a private military company led by Mose Jakande kidnapped a hacker known as Ramsey, who designed a software capable of breaking into any device connected to a digital network. The deal is that if his crew gets back Ramsey, he will let him to use God's eye to track down Shaw. While Fast and Furious figure out a plan to get Ramsey back, Letty shows up and joins them. They are dropped from a plane inside cars. They land straight on the road, attack an armed convoy like it was a truck filled with DVD players, and they reach Ramsey, who turns out to be this hot chick from Game of Thrones. Everything goes smooth until Shaw shows up and spoils the party. He goes after Dom's car trying to push him down from the cliff, but Toretto turns out to be smarter. Dom turns his car into a smoke grenade and jumps off the cliff. He crushes his car badly and they get out without a single scratch. Ramsey reveals that the device is in Dubai. Why Dubai? 2 reasons. Number 1, to see Ramsey in a bikini. Number 2, to jump between buildings using cars. Okay, so it turns out this Safar guy already sold it to a prince. Prince put it in his supercar and he keeps it in his penthouse. They get into the party, steal the car, and exit the fastest possible way. And I have to honorable mention that Letty had a duel with Ronda Rousey, who is a head of security. All in all, they crash that super expensive car, but they get the device. Ramsey runs it and finds Shaw connecting to every security camera in Dubai, because he actually came here after Dom. But it's not like Shaw did not expect them to come. Shootout starts and Mr. Nobody shows his skills, until he gets shot. Shaw throws a grenade and takes down the rest of his team. Dom and Brian carry out Mr. Nobody escape. They leave God's Eye and Jakande gets his hands on it. But it turns out Mr. Nobody actually had fancy armor, but he is still badly wounded. He tells Dom they will come after Ramsey as she can log them out of God's eye as long as she is alive. The crew gets back to their hometown. Tej suggests they hack into God's eye, so they need to get close to it. Also, not to get killed by terrorists, they plan to be on the move all the time, so Jakandu tries to hunt them down using a chopper. Ramsey begins the hacking job, so the terrorists use a drone after the car she is riding. But turns out, this thing shoots with the accuracy of a stormtrooper. Brian don't even have to sweat to let Ramsey cook. Meanwhile, Dom gets another duel with Shaw. I mean, if a Jedi duel and drunk street brawl had a baby, I guess that would be it. Also, Hobbs spots that something is going on and decides to suit up and join the fight. He takes a missile saving Ramsey and Letty with an ambulance. Don't worry, he is okay. Ramsey hacks into the God's Eye and takes it back from the terrorists. Jakanda spots Dom and fires a missile even though Shaw was also there. The roof begins to crack and Shaw falls into a hole. Dom uses his car to get out of the building before it falls apart, and at one point he decides to crash into Jakande's chopper, but he misses. Hobbs blows it up by shooting a bag of grenades hanging out. Then they carry Dom out of the car. Looks like he is dead, but Letty decides to bring him back, telling him she got her memory back. Works like a charm. Shaw gets arrested and Hobbs puts him in jail. Rest of the crew gets back to Spain and have a nice day at the beach. Then they pay a tribute to Paul Walker, and that's how the film ends. Fast and Furious 8, aka The Fate of the Furious, starts in Cuba. Dom and Letty are informed that their cousin is in trouble. This Raldo guy tries to take his car, so Dom challenges him to a race and kicks his riding on a reverse gear. Dom gives his car to his cousin as he burned his during the race. Day after, Dom meets Charlize Theron on spring break. Turns out, she is actually Cypher, and she shows him something that is supposed to make him work for her and betray his friends. Meanwhile, Hobbs is coaching his daughter's soccer team, making them do haka. Agent shows up telling him that Damocles 7 EMP weapon that went missing was found in Berlin. Hobbs calls Dom and asks him for help. It's going great until Dom smashes into Hobbs' car. He steals the weapon they were after and walks away. Since the mission was unofficial, Hobbs gets arrested and Mr. Nobody meets him and offers work in return for clearing his record. Hobbs refuses and gets locked in prison where he meets Dakar Shaw. Long story short, they have a lot of time to meet each other, good enough to gain their own spin-off soon. Meanwhile, Dom gets to meet Cypher a bit better and looks like she is a fan dropping lines from the first movie and shit. Mr. Nobody opens Hobbs' cell, giving him a chance to escape. Actually, that turns into a full-scale riot, and eventually Shaw gets out and Hobbs goes after him. It ends with Mr. Nobody captured both of them. In his base, he already gathered Fast and Furious. Nobody tells them that Dom and Cypher are working together. Also, he tells them that Shaw is now part of a team. Turns out he got screwed by Cypher, so that's good enough to form an alliance. Dom and Cypher break into the building. Shaw proves his loyalty by saving Ramsey's life. Turns out Cypher is holding Elena, and that's why Dom is cooperating with her. Wait, that's not all. Elena shows Dom his baby. Turns out she got pregnant while they had that summer romance, thinking Letty was dead. Now that's a plot twist. Shaw traces Dom in New York. Cypher watches Dom through God's eye, but he manages to cut loose and meets with Magdalene Shaw. They have this parent-to-parent conversation and make a deal. Hobbs and Shaw are getting along a bit better as Deckard turns out to be a war hero if you look closely into his files. Cypher plans to strike on a Russian diplomatic convoy. Her hackers take over traffic cars in the city and remotely cause a crack-up. Then Dom breaks through and steals the case with the launching codes. Fast and Furious go after him and Letty manages to hook him with her car. The rest joins and they actually pin him down. Things get nasty out there and Dom shoots Shaw, but Letty grabs the case. Dom can't shoot her, but this guy Rhodes shows up and puts a gun into her head. Dom takes the case and they leave. Now Cypher has weapon and lunch codes. Still, she is mad at Dom for what he did, so Rhodes kills Elena to punish him. Mr. Nobody tells them there is a secret nuclear base in Russia taken over by terrorists, so they take their cars there. They spot Dom driving forward the base. Long story short, he takes over the whole military base with just a car. Fast and Furious try to stop Cypher from stealing that sub. Ramsey is having a hacking duel with Cypher and she wins, arming those missiles. Meanwhile, Roman is on a submarine trying to shut it down manually. Luckily, he finds the chip and stops the launch. Cypher still wants to steal that submarine though. Tej uses the tank to take down the terrorists, but Cypher soldiers are still after them. At this point, it's basically a regular battle at the open ice, but at the same time, two masked men manage to break into Cypher's plane. Turns out it's Shaw brothers. Cypher thought that Dom killed Deckard back in New York, but actually it was part of the arrangement he had with Mrs. Shaw. Shaw secured Dom's son on the plane, so now Toretto is no longer a hostage. Dom takes down Rhodes, then he joins his crew in the battle while Shaw makes his way out of that plane with the baby. Cypher decides to strike from under the ice with that submarine, and she fires a heat-seeker missile on Dom, but he drives smart enough to redirect its course right on that submarine. Meanwhile, Deckard approaches Cypher, but she takes the last parachute and jumps out of the plane. Crew gets back to New York and has a barbecue on a roof. Mr. Nobody shows up and tells Cypher is probably in Athens. He also gives Hobbs back his badge, but he actually decides to take a break from being Captain America. Shaw brings Dom his son and they shake hands. Toretto finally gets to hold his kid. He promises Elena to keep him safe and introduces him to the crew, telling them his name is Brian. Fast and Furious Hobbs and Shaw spin-off starts with a scene of a special MI6 unit including Hattie Shaw trying to compromise a terrorist group and secure a sample of something. They are doing fine until a guy on a high-tech motorbike shows up. He takes down the entire team acting like a freaking cyborg with super strength bulletproof hands and shit. Hattie decides to inject the sample into her body to protect it from being stolen and she manages to escape. This guy's name is Brixton and he decides to go after Hattie. Then we see Hobbs and Shaw receiving a call and we see them trashing some thugs in different parts of the world. Looks like they are both trying to find out more about the virus. Shaw meets his mother who is in jail. She asks him if he spoke to his sister lately. Meanwhile, Hobbs is visited by Ryan Reynolds who works for the CIA. He tells him about the virus nicknamed Snowflake. Shaw talks to a guy sent by Mr. Nobody who shows him that his sister is involved and promises her an immunity if he helps to get the virus to the CIA. But when they find out they are going to work together, they are not happy. While Shaw investigates his sister's apartment, Hobbs finds her in London. Meanwhile, at Adion headquarters in the United Kingdom, Brixton is shown updating his windows. During the interrogation, Hobbs tells Hattie he knows she didn't kill her team, but she still doesn't want to cooperate with him. She actually escapes while he is on the phone with his daughter, but Shaw shows up and Hattie tells them she is the virus. Few seconds later, Brixton attacks the building and a shootout starts. He grabs Hattie and escapes. Hobbs and Shaw are after him and Hattie is also showing some skills. The trio manages to stunt Brixton for a while and escape with a McLaren. Shaw explains to the others that Adion is a secret tech organization loaded with dark web money that is obsessed with saving the world by augmenting the human race. Shaw tells Hattie he tracked a guy who can get the virus out of her system. The Russian scientist guy explains how the virus works. Long story short, it can go global in 48 hours. He tells them there is a machine that can extract the virus from Hattie's body, but it's in the Adion base located in Ukraine. Shaw gets in touch with these girls in Moscow. Brixton finds the Russian guy and tries to force him to reprogram the virus. Shaw's friend turns out to be really friendly. She gives them guns, and they create a plan. Madam M sets a meeting with Brixton pretending she wants to trade Hattie. She is taken to that super hard to get base. Hobbs and Shaw get near the base with a stealth plane. They find a way inside while Hattie is getting prepared for the virus extraction. Soon boys get cornered by Brixton and his men, but when he is busy catching them, Hattie manages to break her chains again and she steals the extraction machine. Meanwhile, Brixton tortures Hobbs and Shaw and gives a little background story about his and Hobbs' past and tries to justify his action with a bigger cause. He is pretty much creating a society of half humans, half machines, and killing everyone else. Hobbs spots Hattie in the crowd of scientists and tells Brixton that he wants to join. That creates enough distraction for Hattie to steal a weapon. They steal some vehicles and try to escape with the extraction machine. Hobbs and Shaw find it hard to defeat Iron Man, but they are a bit lucky and leave him behind. The machine is broken, so Hattie insists on her brother to kill her and destroy the virus inside her. Hobbs is like, "Screw that! Let's go to Samoa." Hobbs' brother is a mechanic, a good one, good enough to take a super advanced high-tech gear he never seen in his life and fix it just like that. But first, they need to fix their family. Lucky Hobbs' mom shows up, and though she barely talks English, she tells them to work it out. Luke shows Hattie his dad's chop shop. Turns out his dad was a leader of a gang that used to steal whatever they could. Once, he almost got Luke and his brother killed, and he was quite okay with that. So Luke decided to turn him in. His brother's machine turns out to work and they extract the virus from Hattie's body. But that shows Brixton where they are and soon he shows up. Hobbs takes Brixton by surprise, showing up wearing only baby oil. For some reason, those mercenaries decide that throwing motorbikes would be more efficient than using machine guns. But at one point, Brixton captures Hattie and takes her to his chopper. Hobbs and Shaw try to stop him, Mad Max style, and that shit works! They crush that chopper. But what about Hattie? We all know people don't die in crashes in this franchise. Working as a duo, they beat Brixton. Hattie secures the virus and the demonic AI orders to shut Brixton down. Then it connects via chopper and tells Hobbs they know each other and soon they will meet. But for now, they get to enjoy the sunset and a happy ending with all the family reunions you can take. Fast and Furious 9 starts on a NASCAR race truck, and we see Dom's father crushing his car after his rival played dirty while overtaking him. Then we see Dom, Letty, and Dom's kid he had with another woman while he fought. Letty was dead. Turns out Mr. Nobody sent them an SOS transmission. Turns out he caught Cypher, but his plane was attacked while they tried to extract her. Fast and Furious find the remains of the plane. They find a mystery black box, and soon hostile soldiers show up. Team jumps into their cars and escapes through the jungle, but they lose the black box. It also turns out that Letty recognized Dom's brother Jakob during the battle, so yes, Dom has a brother that turns out to be a super spy. We actually get to meet this guy a bit better during the flashback scenes. After the race, he met this other driver who caused the accident. Actually, this guy is pretty cocky and he triggers Jakob, but Dom steps in trying to cool things down. It ends with even more trash talk and Dom raging and beating this dude to death. Jakob grew up to become John Cena. He is the one who captured Cypher. He shows her the box. Turns out it's actually half of the device. He wants her to find out where the rest of it. She finds it in Scotland. Meanwhile, Fast and Furious reach an abandoned base. Okay, so what is that secret weapon? It's called Project Aries. It's designed to override and simulate anything that runs on code. Uploaded on a satellite, it will spread like a virus, and the person who controls it would be able to control any weapon system on the planet. Ramsey explains it works when you combine two pieces and find a key that activates it. Jakob has one part and is already after the second one, but Taj reveals that he found a hint about the key and it points to Han. In another flashback, we see Dom in jail. Dom realizes his dad's car was purposely messed up before the race. When Dom gets out, goes to a street racing party and he challenges Jakob for a race, telling him if he loses, he will leave and never come back. Dom knows it's Jakob who messed up their dad's car before the race. Dom wins the duel and Jakob leaves the town. Back in the present day, Dom meets the guy who took care of Jakob after he left. He reveals that Jakob is in London. In London, Dom meets with Shaw's mom. She drives him to this castle where his brother's partner introduces himself as a super rich kid. Dom meets Jakob inside. The family reunion goes badly and Dom gets arrested, but turns out that it is not Interpol but a hot chicks gang run by Cardi B, an old friend from his time in the Dominican Republic. Cardi gives him a gun with Jakob's fingerprints so he can easily track him down. Letty and Mia search the apartment and they are interrupted by Otto's agents storm the apartment. Sniper shoots down the remaining agents, saving Letty. The sniper, it's revealed to be Han. Tej, Roman and Ramsey meet up with Dom in Edinburgh, as that's where the second half of Project Aries is. Tej and Roman are compromised when they find the magnetic device and are able to fight their way out when Ramsey starts to drive the truck the magnet is attached to while giving chase to Otto. Meanwhile, Dom notices Jakob zip-lining from building to building and intercepts him, leading to a fight between the two brothers. Otto is prepared for an extraction, but Ramsey uses the magnet in the truck to apprehend him. Otto regroups back at his base of operations and reunites with Cypher. Meanwhile, back at the Toretto safe house, Jakob is kept captive in a cell. Han reveals that Giselle was a former CIA operative who worked with Mr. Nobody. Han was offered a job by Mr. Nobody and was assigned to protect Elle and Project Aries, Elle's DNA being the final component for it. The two then formed a plan using Deckard Shaw as cover to fake his death in order to better protect Elle. Otto compromises the safe house and frees Jakob, while Jakob reveals that he was the one that betrayed Mr. Nobody. When Dom tells Jakob he doesn't deserve to have the Toretto name, Jakob angrily reveals what happened leading up to their dad's last race in 1989. Jack was in deep debt and was planning to throw the race in order to get himself out of it, planning to fake his death so that his family could have a better life. Otto arrives at the bunker with his agents, rescues Jakob and kidnaps Elle and recover the second half of the Project Aries. To avoid the guards from getting to Letty, Dom destroys the chains holding the bridge up, causing him and the guards to fall into the sea lock below. Dom flashes back to his past, remembering how desperate their father was before the race and realizes that Jakob was telling the truth. Letty saves him from drowning. Jakob and Otto have everything they need to activate Project Aries. Dom tells the team that they have to go full force to stop them, including going into space to destroy a satellite. Otto has a satellite launch into orbit, while Jakob has Elle activate the Aries device. As they wait for the satellite to activate, they're moving throughout Tbilisi in an armored 16-wheeler. Fast and Furious chase them. Mia and Han try to gain entrance onto the truck and Jakob is double-crossed by Otto, who reveals that he now works with Cypher. Jakob fights Otto's right-hand man before being thrown off the truck. Dom and Mia manage to save him. He redeems himself and returns to help Dom and Ramsey gain access to the truck. Meanwhile, Tej and Roman are in orbit and destroy the satellite before Aries can be fully uploaded to it. Cypher appears flying in on a jet in one last attempt to kill Dom and is successful in blowing up the truck but only kills Otto. Dom manages to get out at the last minute. The truck then ricochets into Cypher's jet, but it's revealed that she was flying the jet on a computer simulator. Jakob arrives in Dom's charger and gives him his keys back. Dom hands him back the keys, finally forgiving Jakob for his role in their father's death. The International Space Station spots Tej and Roman and brings them back down to Earth. Dom takes little Brian to the tracks where his father competed as they celebrate another successful mission with a family barbecue. Dom says they can't say grace yet because notices an empty chair next to Mia, just as Brian O'Connor's blue Nissan Skyline arrives in the driveway. Back in Fast and Furious 5, Dominic and Brian stole a vault containing the life savings of corrupt Brazilian businessman Hernan Reyes in Rio de Janeiro. Reyes and his son Dante pursue them. As they chase Dom onto a bridge, he used the vault to knock Dante's car into the water. As you remember, his father was killed in cold blood. 10 years later, Dom is giving his son Brian a driving lesson. They return home and celebrate with a barbecue that is attended by Abuelita Toretto, and Roman is requested by the agency to steal a supercomputer chip from a convoy in Rome. Ramsey, Tej, Parker, and Han join Roman on the mission. They are approached by Cypher, who is wounded after Dante came to her with the offer of a partnership. When Dante realized they had different interests, he turned Cypher's team against her by revealing he had members of their family held hostage. Cypher was able to fight back and escape, so she could warn Dom and Letty of the incoming war. They call Little Nobody, who arrests Cypher and verifies his story. However, he reveals that the agency has no job going in Rome, and Dom and Letty realize that it was a trap set up by Dante. In Rome, Dante locks the team inside a truck transporting a large bomb and begins setting off multiple explosions which are blamed on the team. As they flee underground, Letty tries to pursue Dante but gets arrested, and Dom is able to push the bomb into the Tiber River to mitigate the effects, yet still causing a fair amount of damage to the city. Agent Ames, the agency's new leader following Mr. Nobody's disappearance, believes that Dom and his team are responsible for the bombing and set a multi-million-dollar bounty. The team are declared terrorists, and Letty is taken to a prison while Roman and the others flee to London. Dom is visited by Magdalene Shaw, who comforts him. He asks her to deliver a message to Mr. Nobody, but she is unable to do that. Back in Los Angeles, little Brian and Mia are ambushed by members of the agency looking to apprehend them. Mia fights off the agents and is joined by Jakob, who was called by Dom. He stops the agents and reveals that Dom asked him to bring Brian to Portugal. Mia agrees and then leaves to be with Brian, as she believes he is in danger now that they are being targeted by the agency. In Naples, Dom meets Tess, daughter of Mr. Nobody, who reveals that Dante is in Rio. She then warns him that Ames is coming after him with everything he has. He requests Tessa's help freeing Letty from prison, and she discovers that Letty is being held in Antarctica. She visits her and stabs her so she can be transported to a medical facility where Cypher is being kept. Letty and Cypher get to know each other a bit better, and the two agree to work together to escape. In London, Tej, Ramsey, Roman and Han discover their bank accounts have been drained by Dante and meet with Bowie, an old associate of Ramsey's who tries turning them in for the bounty. Han suggests getting help from Deckard Shaw, and when Han arrives on his doorstep, Shaw believes that Han is coming for revenge, and the two fight. After they are infiltrated by the agency, Shaw and Han make amends, and then Shaw leaves the group to go find Magdalene, who is being tracked by Dante. In Rio, Dom meets Dante for the first time, and Dante challenges him to a street race. This ends up with Dom's friend Diogo getting killed in an explosion triggered by Dante. Dom stops Dante from killing Isabel Neves, the sister of Elena Neves, and she returns the favor by giving Dom Elena's old files on Dante. Dom discovers that Dante still owns the police station where the vault was stolen, and he goes there to find more information. He finds Dante's vision board and discovers that he is tracking all of the Fast and Furious, even those forgotten from the previous movies. Dom is captured by Arms, and along the drive they are ambushed by Dante, who shoots Ames and Tess and steals God's Eye. Isabel takes Tess to the hospital, and Dom and Ames team up to stop Dante, who is going to Portugal, where he plans to kidnap Dom's son. Jakob and little Brian are fleeing from Dante and his crew in a modified cannon car, and Dom arrives with Ames on a plane and lands his car onto the highway to join them. Dante tries to kidnap the kid, however Jakob sacrifices himself in an explosion to allow Dom and his son to escape. When instructed by Ames, Dom takes a service road to an airstrip but is trapped by Dante once more. Here, it is revealed that Ames has been working with Dante since 2011, and as Roman, Tej, Ramsey and Han arrive on a plane, it is shot down by Ames and crashes, leaving their fates unknown. But we all know people don't get hurt in crashes in this franchise. Dante tries to kill Dom and little Brian between two drone-operated semi-trailers. Dom drives down the slope of the dam, landing safely in the water, but Dante reveals the dam is rigged with explosives and sets them off. We don't really know what happened to them, but what we know, Dom has a long history of surviving car crashes in this franchise. In Antarctica, Letty and Cypher have escaped the prison, and as they cross over a mountain, they witness a submarine rise from below the ground, and a woman emerges watching them through binoculars. The woman turns out to be Giselle! She is still alive after dying in Fast and Furious 6. In a post-credits scene, Dante calls Luke Hobbs, who is investigating an abandoned theater. He warns Hobbs that as he was the one who killed his father, he will be coming for him next. Hobbs tells him that he isn't hard to find, and then crushes the phone. And that's how the film ends.